I love this question because with my background being in StoryBrand, and for anybody who's not familiar with StoryBrand, it's actually one of the most effective marketing strategies in best practices today. And Kelly mentioned our data analytics background. So I'm actually testing all of the marketing best practices. So I can actually say that with a lot of confidence. And the reason why I love this and there's key concepts to it is because we're really entering someone's story. And so a few key pieces of the puzzle are: who is your hero in the story? What are they up against? How can you come in and enter as a guide? When you think about stories and really incredible guides, you think of Star Wars and Yoda or Obi-Wan Kenobi, or in the Lord of the Rings, Gandalf is one of the guides. And then it's like, what plan can you give them? So here's how you experience that transformation when you're struggling or trying to solve a problem. Here's the transformation our products or services give you. And then here's what happens. This is the outcome of working with us. And so those are some of the really key components: is who is your audience? What are they up against? How are you adequately prepared to guide them? And what's the plan? How do they work with you? And then what's the transformation you're about to give them by working with your services or product?
Welcome, fellow entrepreneurs and goal getters, to Entrepreneurial Elevation, Unleashing Greatness Within, with myself, your host, Kelly Beveridge, and my special guest today, Julie Wieler. Sorry about that. And so if you enjoy this episode, just a friendly reminder to go and like and comment, head over to my YouTube channel at Entrepreneurial Elevation and subscribe. I'm excited for today and to pick Julie's brain around all things marketing. Julie is an entrepreneur. She's a married mom of 2 boys. She is the founder of a very successful digital marketing agency where she's been pumping out multiple 6-year figures. And now she's on her way to a 7-year figure income, which is really exciting. She obviously knows what she's doing. She also recently started a new business. She's the co-founder of something called Coach Core that I'm a huge advocate for. It's basically a digital business in a box. It's a toolkit for coaches and people who are running their own business. We'll dive a little bit into that, and she can share on the call today. She's a certified StoryBrand guide, certified business made simple coach. She's a data analytics conversion expert. So I'm stoked to learn from her today. And so Julie, just welcome and thanks for being here this morning.
Oh my gosh, Kelly, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for that kind introduction.
Of course. And we've been traveling in the same social circles for many years and have recently connected, and it's divine timing. And I'm really excited to be in your company because you really are an inspiration, not just in business, but just in how you are operating in your family, how you go after your goals. I know we were just talking before the call that you just sold your house and are moving out to your dream acreage. And it's just really great to be in your energy. And I'm going to dive in, Julie. And my first question is a simple one, yet I just want to know and it might be a silly one, yet what's the difference between marketing and branding?
That's it. It's actually not a silly question at all. Marketing is how you get to your customer. So I often say, like, marketing is how you can help them solve the problem. And branding is who you are. So branding is about your reputation, a little bit more about what people can expect from you, whereas marketing is more about how you can actually serve the client. So it's answering the question, what problem can I solve for you? And so that's really what it boils down to, is the two different things of, who you are versus what you do, like for your ideal audience.
Okay, that's such a great way to understand the difference because we throw around those terms. Yeah, they have meanings to them. So what would you say then would be, if we're focused on the marketing concept, what would be some key components to having a successful marketing strategy?
Okay, so this is where I love this question because with my background being in StoryBrand, and for anybody who's not familiar with StoryBrand, it's actually one of the most effective marketing strategies in best practices today. And Kelly mentioned our data analytics background. So I'm actually testing all of the marketing best practices. So I can actually say that with a lot of confidence. And the reason why I love this and there's key concepts to it is because we're really entering someone's story. And so a few key pieces of the puzzle are, who is your hero in the story? What are they up against? How can you come in and enter as a guide? When you think about stories and really incredible guides, you think of Star Wars and Yoda or Obi-Wan Kenobi, or in the Lord of the Rings, Gandalf is one of the guides. And then it's like, what plan can you give them? So like, here's how you experience that transformation when you're struggling or trying to solve a problem. Here's the transformation our products or services give you. And then here's what happens. This is the outcome of working with us. And so those are some of the really key components: is who is your audience? What are they up against? How are you adequately prepared to guide them? And what's the plan? How do they work with you? And then what's the transformation you're about to give them by working with your services or products?
Okay. And how does somebody, because like that question, who is your audience? Obviously, it's one of the key components, yet it just sounds so simple, like just who's your audience? Yet I actually find it a bit confusing on how, and overwhelming on how to land on that. I just started a new business and I'm like, it was so broad. And then I could solve this problem and this problem and this problem and this problem. Can you give some tips on how do you narrow that down? And is that important? Is it important to be really specific so that the person on the other end of your message feels like you're speaking to them?
So there's a few key concepts here. And one of the things that I want to just say right off the bat is that it's very common to not want to narrow down, because we have this idea of where we go too narrow that our audience might be small. But the truth is that's a bit of a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. And so the truth is when we actually niche down, we actually get a much further and higher qualified person that we're working with. So a few things are the usual things when you're working with a marketing company, or if you're doing your own marketing, you might get asked what the age of the person you're talking to, male, female, or where are they in the stage of life? Do you coach moms or do you coach? There's all of those key aspects. So there's demographic, behavioral, environmental, where do they live? Do you work with people who are just in your local area, or do you work with people who are international? The other piece of this puzzle is really like, what problem do you help them solve? And this is the curse of a lot of businesses, is you can help solve a lot of problems. But the truth is, if you're known for solving one problem really well, you will be busy your whole entire career. Because when somebody knows that you're the go-to person for solving a problem, specific problem, you can then go in and help them solve other problems, but you need to get them in the door. So we always say, like, what's the door in? And so it may seem like, yes, I can help somebody build, Kelly, you're talking about your new business. So you can help people with a lot of different areas, right? You and I have had that conversation of you have such a vast skill set that you can really equip people in a big way. However, until you get them in the door, that's overwhelming. They don't know that if you confuse them, you lose them. And so if I think that, oh no, Kelly does this and she does this, but my problem's over here, so I actually don't need Kelly yet, I won't talk to you in that aspect. Whereas if you can get really clear on what the main problem you're going to help them solve is, and the main one that they're willing to take action on, you can actually move people through your whole process, but you need to get them in the door first. Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. And so here's where my mind goes though with that. I have a question, because being somebody, let's say it's a new business owner, I'm a new business owner, and I land on what it is, right? I'm like, oh, this is what it is. There's a little bit of fear of, well, what if once I get into a lot of action, I realize that's not what it is and I want to change it? Do you recommend that? Is that something you can do and be fluid and flexible with your marketing and messaging until you get your groove or your proper lane? Or what do you suggest so that people just pull the trigger and they don't sit in indecision for such a long time when they're starting their business?
Here's an analogy I love when we use it oftentimes in the data analytics world, is that you have to build a skateboard. Until you have any movement, you have no feedback. So in building a business, you have to take imperfect action just to move forward. So you choose one and then you iterate it as you get data back and as you get feedback back. If you're not growing your business, that might not be the right problem to solve. And so one of the things that I think is really encouraging is to do your research. So the cool thing is there's there's websites like askthepublic.com, or you can Google what people are searching. When you put into the Google bar, start a prompt, how all of us go in and go, how do I learn how to plant peonies? And so like you start that, and Google will actually show you with their data what people are searching, right? Those top things that pop up are what people are searching for. So you can actually do a little bit of research and get a really good indicator of where might be the best route to start with. However, it is okay to change your path a little bit as you get that data back. But until you have that data, you can sit in indecision and have analysis paralysis for years and not take action. And the truth is, imperfect action will be no action any day of the week. So I'm a huge advocate. In our business, we've definitely taken imperfect action and it has not worked out. However, the feedback has been how we've been able to grow. So it's that constant curiosity around, okay, this is just our audience telling us what they don't want. Instead of being like, oh my goodness, I got it wrong. It's actually just data. So I love that curiosity. And I think as entrepreneurs, if you can really adopt that, oh, this is good. Like, this is good for me to know. All feedback is good feedback to help you move in a direction and move forward. So
Love that. I love that. And just to be neutral with the feedback too, right? Feedback's just feedback here, and it does help you. And okay, so let's say you get clear on who your audience is going to be and you're getting going. What would be some tips on best practices to start to grow an audience? So like, where do I go and find my audience? Or how do I attract my audience? Where do I build, for lack of better words, a community of people? Like in my mind, it would be great to just have a big pool of people that are exactly my avatar. So like, how do I start to create that?
but it really depends on who your audience is, right? If your audience is a younger demographic, they're probably not on Facebook. That's not where you're going to find them. However, if your audience is that 32 to 45, they're maybe on Instagram. So it's really getting clear on where they are actually located. If you have a more business-minded community as your avatar, or ideal client, they might be on LinkedIn. So then you start building the content there. And the content always centers around how you can help somebody solve a problem. And we have a little bit of an awareness scale on when we talk about problem awareness. And so some people in your audience category, they might be unaware that they have a problem altogether. So your content is actually a little bit of an agitation process and not in a bad way or a manipulative way, but in a way that has them seeing, oh, I actually am struggling with that. And then there's problem aware. Maybe they already know they have a problem and you're just actually educating them on that there's a solution to the problem. And then maybe the next piece of this is maybe they know they have a problem. They know there's solutions. So they're out looking for solutions. So we call that solution aware. And then really your whole point of educating in your content then will come down to, are they you aware? Are they aware that you have the solution? So then you can answer the question. So again, this is one of those things where we play with it and see, we'll do some if they're unaware, we'll do some if they're problem aware, we'll do some if they're solution aware. And then we see which content resonates the most. And that gives us a really big indicator on where our audience is actually at.
I love that. That's such a great way to look at it. And I love how you're saying, like, what I'm hearing you say is try different things too, and multiple times, and maybe speak to the mindset of that, because I have a feeling, not a feeling, I've seen it and experienced it where people will get into business and they will try different things, yet they'll try it like once and be like, that doesn't work. Talk to the mindset of, if you're going to start to build a business and market yourself, especially on social media, this isn't a one-stop shop. Like, you got to be willing to be in the trenches figuring out what works, but that mindset of being willing to try different things multiple times until you land on what it is.
Mm-hmm. It is a mindset, because it's, again, we go back to that curiosity. If you try something once, could just be an off day, an off time, maybe you didn't have the right people in front of you for that piece of content. And when we talk about platforms like Facebook or Instagram, that content only lives for a very short time. There's so many factors in play that could be impacting whether or not that piece of content or that effort was null or void. And it's not just that the content itself was bad. It's just that there were some external factors that could be at play. So if you're not it's like, I equate this to, if you look at somebody like Alex Hermosia. If you're familiar with Alex Hermosia at all, he's built multiple businesses. And he talks about that he wasn't successful till like his 7th or 8th business. And can you imagine now if he had quit at number 1, thinking, oh, I'm not an entrepreneur, like this is not what I'm made to do. He wouldn't actually be where he is and be sharing all of these resources with entrepreneurs who are just getting started. Like what we learn is actually just as beneficial from the setbacks as it is from the comebacks. And so I really think that it can just get in the mindset of every time something doesn't work, it's like doing a rep at the gym. It's making that muscle stronger, and you're figuring out how the movement works and what you want to speak to. Because there's so many things that can make something viral or make something tank. And it's just a matter of somebody like Gary Vaynerchuk will say, make as much content as humanly possible so that you actually have an adequate data pool to see what your audience wants. So.
No, I love that. And as you're speaking, I'm just sitting here thinking it really is a long game, right? It's like choosing into the long game. And I'm curious of your take because you're into digital marketing, obviously. For me, I'm 47 and I'm at that cusp where it's like I've done a little bit of it and I'm leaning towards being open to learning the new skill. Yet I still got this old school business mentality of building my business offline, where I have my warm contact list. I pick up the phone and call people, or I message people. I invite them to a conversation with me. And I find that very effective to get sales. So what would you say, like with your experience for people, is it important to also have some offline components to your business? Or do you suggest you can get the same, if not better results going fully online? Do you blend the both? What's your take on that?
I'm a huge fan of blending because I think oftentimes it's easy to get trapped in like camp A or camp B of, hey, I build my business 100% online, or I build my business 100% knee to knee, eye to eye kind of thing. And both are really, really powerful business models. We had the internet. There were people who built massive businesses because of the connection with people. And both of them have fantastic things. One of the things I find is that if you've built your business knee to knee or picking up the phone, sometimes I find that category actually questions is it possible to do it online at the caliber of what I've done offline. And the truth is you can. The scale is different. Where online, if you're talking and putting out a piece of content and it's seen by 100 people or 1,000 people, the time it would take you to call that many people is just not viable. And so it depends on your business model. However, I'm a big fan of creating authentic relationship online as I am offline. So it really depends on personality. Both business models are completely viable and they are 100% effective.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so let's say we're looking at the online component, and you touched on this that it can be overwhelming with platform. There's so many options. And you talked about where is your ideal audience or customer hanging out. So that would be number one. What other tips would you give on which platforms to focus on? And then also, two, my second question to that is once you decide where you're going to put your focus, like what kind of messaging should you be sharing? What's the content? Like we keep speaking, put out content, yet what is effective content?
Yeah. So it really depends on, I know that's not a fun thing to say when it's like, just tell me which one to go on and I'll go on it kind of thing. But the truth is it depends on the platform. If you're building on Instagram, it's mostly visual. So you have to get really good at creating visual content. Facebook, you can have a little bit more of a blend of visual versus written. And the Twitter or X now, it's all written. So it really does depend on who your audience is and where they are. However, one of the things I will say is that no matter what, the one thing across every platform that you need to get really good at is explaining how you solve a problem and like demonstrating empathy and authority. You need to show people that, hey, been down this road. I know how to get you the results you want. This is one of the things that you can do. And so really effective content online centers around, hey, are you struggling with X? Did you know A, B, and C could be the solution? And that's really where it gets active, right? That's how we tell the story. Because then every time you give a version with a piece of content and a little piece of value with that content, you're actually creating authority and trust with the audience that's watching it. And so that's really beneficial. And it doesn't matter what platform you're doing it on, really make sure that every piece of content is designed to encourage the reader or the person on the other side to learn something or to gain something from your content. Because especially if you're building a business and using the platforms as a business, you are taking somebody's most precious commodity, and that's their time. Make sure that exchange is valuable for both sides so that that person then knows that you care and will come to you when they're ready.
Yeah, I love that. You're building value and you're building trust and credibility through consistency with content. And so I love what you're sharing. And so just a follow-up question to that. I'm just thinking of content. What are the components, regardless whether it's written, video, audio? Like, for example, is it you want to have the hook and then you want to have, here's the solution. And then is there a call to action? Get a hold of me here. What are the contents that are important to have in whatever you're sharing?
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head. So hook, body, CTA is what everything is built around. So the hook is always designed. I'm sure everybody's heard this a million times, is like, can it capture somebody? And the truth is your hook is actually most effective if it's a question. Because in StoryBrand, one of the things that we know is that, and we call them story loops. So the reason a good story or a movie is really effective is in the first 5 minutes of the movie starting, you've opened a story loop. Oh my gosh, will Jason Bourne ever find out who he is? Or will they ever get the ring to Mordor? Or all of these things. And so you're hooked, and our brains are designed to then stay to find the information to close that story loop. And so the hook is really designed to open that story loop. So questions are fantastic. And struggling with this, really great pieces of content that when you know your audience, you can actually ask them this question of like, hey, Friday night shouldn't be looking like this, or is it looking like this for you, kind of thing. And then your body is where you give them the value. So if this is in a video, you can share it in the video. If this is in written content, you share it in the written content. And then the call to action is always how they can experience that transformation, the steps that it takes. Send me a DM and I'll the free piece of content that help answer the rest of this story loop, or send us an email here, or follow up with us, get our team on board so you can experience X, which is always that transformational identity that we want to give somebody when they have the solution to the problem.
Okay, awesome. And so what is your take on like the difference between, because I've been doing I've just been watching a lot and really doing my best to learn what the best strategies are. And so what is your take on long form content versus this? And then my second follow-up question to that would be, speaking of short-term content, like how often should we be producing content?
A good rule of thumb is, going back to your demographic again, younger demographics actually really like shorter form content. We're seeing attention spans are decreasing with the influx of platforms like TikTok, right? That 3-minute video is all people want to consume there. And then they want on to the next. However, what we really see is it's actually a transition from the short form into the longer form, because as they're looking to build that trust after they have the initial curiosity built with you, then they're going to start watching longer things that you produce in more value you can give in one chunk of content. So it really does, again, older demographics will watch longer content or ingest longer content, even if it's written. If you have a younger demographic, though, I would start with a little bit more of the short form. And then the rule of thumb that we like is, it doesn't really matter the amount of content you put out. It just has to be consistently put out. So don't put out 1 week where you're putting out 7 pieces of content, 1 per day, and then the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you don't put out anything. So it's consistency is more of a key than the quantity.
Hi, I'm Tanya, and this is Julie, and we are the founders of Coach Core, your all-in-one solution for building and scaling a successful coaching business.
At Coach Core, we provide you with everything you need in one place. You can house your courses, manage memberships, run email campaigns, and create stunning websites and funnels, all with our easy-to-use platform.
And it's not just about the software. We offer built-in coaching and mentorship, helping you implement best practices from certified NLP practitioners and StoryBrand coaches. And that's just scratching the surface of what's inside.
And that's why we're excited to sponsor the Entrepreneurial Elevation podcast with Kelly Beveridge. Kelly is a thought leader who inspires and elevates entrepreneurs worldwide.
We believe in the power of community and continuous learning, and this podcast is a fantastic resource for any coach looking to truly grow their practice.
So join us on this journey. Tune into the Entrepreneurial Elevation podcast for insights and inspiration, and visit Coach Core to transform your coaching business today.
Coach Core, your path to coaching success.
Cool. Such good advice. Yeah, I was curious about that. And I'm also curious about this. What is your take? Because you mentioned it, and I haven't heard somebody say it in this way where your avatar, for example, is the hero. And a lot of times I will see people producing content when, let's say I'm my brand, for example, like I'm the brand in the business, it's like personal and business kind of blend, where they're constantly putting themselves as the hero of their own story. So what would you say, or what advice do you have around that? Or like, how do you shift that? Or is it okay to put yourself as the hero because you're sharing, here's what's possible once you break through, I'm the example. Yet I feel like sometimes there's people who that's all they do is talk about themselves in the story. And I'm not attracted to that so much. To your point of having the avatar be the hero, which I've never heard somebody say it like that before. So can you maybe just chat about that?
Yeah, you betcha. And this is actually one of the reasons why I fell in love with StoryBrand, is because when it comes down to it, the truth is that people don't care about your story until they're looking for essentially the data to back up their decision. And so they don't need to know your story until they're really, really setting you up as a guide potentially for their story. Most people don't realize, like, if we walk into a Starbucks, what do we notice? We notice where we need to go to put our order in. We may notice there's a few other people in. We know where the exit door is. We know where the washroom is if we need those. But there's actually thousands of inputs that happen when we walk through that door. But our brains are designed to get rid of all of that because it would be exhausting and overwhelming. We would never get anything done if we were trying to organize all of that input that's coming in. Our brains are designed to help us figure out what is going to help us survive and thrive. So I'm not counting ceiling tiles or the pipes in the Starbucks. I'm going to where I need to order my coffee. I'm looking for the open table. And then I'm going to use the washroom and I'm going to leave. So that's all I need to know about that Starbucks. And so your audience is thinking the same thing. How is this sort of helping me survive and thrive? And the problem when we try and set ourselves up as the hero is that automatically our brains are designed to go, oh, that's really good for them. I don't need them. And so it's only until you can actually spark this story loop in them of, hey, I am struggling with X. Oh, they've gone through what I've gone through. They might be the solution to my problem. But it's only until they have that awareness and realize that you're stepping in as a guide, not a hero in their story.
And I also think, I'm just thinking as somebody who's building their business, it just creates relatability it obviously takes vulnerability, right? To just really be transparent and share. And it's almost like come on the journey with me in a sense, right? Which is a different take. And I love that too. So what would you say with businesses? How can they ensure that their marketing efforts align with their overall, let's say, brand message and values, so that like they don't get off track with that? Because it's easy to do when you're watching so many other people are doing.
Yeah.
Get distracted.
Like shiny object syndrome is a real thing. And it's important to give yourself grace too. This is the piece of the puzzle when we go back to that mindset of curiosity and testing. Modeling is fantastic. There are some people who have done really great jobs. And if you can look at them and go, okay, but I love that they did this in their video, or I love that this is a piece of what they're sharing. But how do I share that from a place of authenticity, empathy, authority, all of those things my way, not necessarily just being a carbon copy? Because the truth is that actually doesn't grow your business to be a carbon copy. You can take best practices and integrate them. However, being a carbon copy doesn't actually build your business. And so it's really important to focus on what feels authentic and what feels very, very much in alignment with your values every time you share. So I have this lens of, if we're going to put out content, is it actually solving a problem? Am I guiding them in a way that feels authentic to me? And then on top of that, is it providing value if I'm taking their time? So am I going to give them a solution to a problem in that short period of time that I'm with them? And this like internally, what I kind of picture is, I always picture, even if I'm creating a social media post, like if I was sitting across the table having coffee with somebody, would I say this to somebody? And if the answer is no, then I don't make that content. Like, it's one of those things where it really does come down to the relational side of it. Everything is relational, no matter what we're doing in business, because the relationship is what builds a business. And I think it's easy to get off track and try and be what other people are being. But if it's not in alignment with you, it won't grow your business.
I love that. I love that advice so much. Okay, one more question before I transition to, I want to talk to you a little bit about your personal journey. No, I have two more questions. So what would you say to somebody who's just starting their business? What would be like the first 3 steps they could take to start to get clear on their marketing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is understanding where you want the business to go. So we take a 10,000-foot view of like, okay, how would I like my days to look? And then you work back from there. Okay, so if I'm a coach, I need to have X amount of coaching clients. How do I need to build that? And then you work back. Okay, what's the problem I can help those coaches solve? Where will I find them? How do I get started creating the content that's going to bring them in? Or who can I call in my warm market that may know some of these people? The first is getting really clear on who it is you want to help and what you want to be doing. Because the truth is, you can build a business, and we always joke around like our business has been built as we're taking the plane off. It's not perfect, but we had a clear idea of where we wanted to land the whole entire time. So there's always been direction. The next part is great. It was a struggle up until like they went public. Like, there's grace in the process of nobody's business is perfect. And if they're showing that on social media, I call BS on that, because it's one of those things where it's like, if you're an entrepreneur, that there's ups and downs and challenges, and there's really amazing days when you're celebrating, and that's fantastic. And there's other days where you're like really up against it. And so grace in the process, knowing where you're going, and then just take action. Imperfect action will win every single time. I know I said that earlier, but it's like, it really is true. You're allowed to grow and evolve. One of the reasons why, I know Kelly, you and I talked about this, is like, I don't get people to spend a lot of money on branding when they're first starting a business, because you're going to change. So get something out, and like colors, fonts, all of that stuff. Yeah, it looks beautiful. However, you're going to grow in the process. Your brand is going to grow in the process. So just be open to that, and we started out as essentially a VA company, and now we're strategic planning, and that's all within the span of less than 5-6 years kind of thing. And you're allowed to evolve, and the business is allowed to evolve as you grow, and give yourself grace for that.
That's awesome. What is there anything you want to share, like, that I haven't asked, that before I transition and ask you to share your story? Is there anything that you're like, ooh, I want to make sure that they know about this?
That's a good question. I think that probably the last thing I would share is, if you are building a business and you want to do it online, you do have to start to learn a few different skills. Get comfortable in front of the camera, figure out how to tell a story in terms of transformation, and just get feedback from people who love you and who are willing to cheer you on. So it's like one of those things where it's like, I always say, like, get your circle as an entrepreneur of people who are also in it, because every time you're uncomfortable or looking to find a solution, they'll give you feedback in a way that will help you grow. So just learn the skills you need, but be willing to be perfect at it. Be willing to suck, as we actually have like the Nike line principles. There's one, and we have it on our office wall, and it's number 9 is, it ain't going to be pretty. And so that's one of the things that I just always say to people, like, don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. If you go and look at anybody's content who's large now, it was because they tested everything and nothing was pretty at the beginning.
I was watching Joe Rogan the other day about podcasts, and he said, first of all, he didn't get into his level of success until year 5. And he's like, and I shot my first one in my basement, sitting on my couch. Like, if you look back to his ones, they're actually quite hilarious. Okay, so Julie, how did you, like, first of all, thanks. Like, everything you're sharing is gold. I'm hanging on to every word because I'm really in this space of wanting to understand myself. Yet, how did you become an entrepreneur? Like, where did your journey begin and how did you get to now at this year going into a 7-figure year? Can you tell us that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. My journey actually started about 9.5 years ago when my husband was diagnosed with a lung disease that changed our lives overnight. I went from being a stay-at-home mom to our boys, who were 5 and 3 at the time. And I loved being a stay-at-home mom. My husband worked out of town and we had just our roles. That's what I grew up with. That was what I knew. And when he was diagnosed, he went from being healthy, active, like just about 40-year-old to being awake for 4 hours a day. And so our income drastically dropped and we had to figure out our new normal. And so I actually went back to school to be an EA because the one thing I loved was I loved being in our classroom. And so I actually then got introduced to, as I was going to school for that, I got introduced to a network marketing company. And what I didn't realize is how much I would fall in love with the business side of the network marketing aspect and the personal development. And I love that business model for so many reasons. And it was my entry level in. And so I always say to people, don't judge anything, right? Like you never know what's going to be the step to the next step to the path that's supposed to be your journey. And about 2.5 years into that endeavor, my husband's insurance decided they were going to cut us off. And so our insurance payment left. And so this little side business that I was building became our sole income. And I knew I had to really grow my skills in order to actually have a business that was capable of helping our family. And so as I was growing that, then people started to notice and they said, oh, could you do that for us? And so I did. That's how our marketing company was born. And we started out with making social media and stuff like that for people. And then it grew and I was able to become the StoryBrand Guide certification. That really increased our business. And I just fell in love with helping businesses because to me, businesses are really the heart of communities. And they're the people who are supporting sports teams or they're doing good in their communities. And so our value grew and we added a few more designations in the agency and grew. And this year with the addition of Coach Core is actually how our business is going to hit that 7-figure mark in the next 12 months. And so that's a really exciting place to be. And it still feels surreal. And I say this with a very big grain of salt because this has also been one of the most challenging years we've had in business. And we finished out our last year with over 6 figures of unpaid invoices. So when I think about business, I think about we're celebrating and we're super excited and there have been challenges. So it's not a straight line by any means in that place. It's such a beautiful piece of the puzzle as you see, hey, we can have all of this greatness here and all of the challenge, they can exist at the same time. And so that's a little bit about how we grew. And it was surreal to put in an offer on our dream acreage, knowing that it was the business that actually bought it. All that hard work and all of the days wondering if it was going to work out and how things would line up. And they were all for a bigger purpose.
Oh my gosh, what a phenomenal story. It's so inspiring. And I know that you shared we only have a few minutes for you to share your story. There's so much learning in, I'm sure, your journey to go from where you came from to where you are now. And I love that you talked about like obstacles don't go away as you become more successful, right?
No.
You just have better tools and a mindset to equip yourself with them. And the truth is, this is my belief, the bigger the goals, the bigger the obstacle, right? The bigger the obstacle, the bigger the reward though. And I welcome obstacles because then I know that when I grow through it, what's on the other side is going to be a bigger blessing for myself. And that takes time to lean into that kind of mindset sometimes too.
It's like a muscle. You got to keep working it.
You're like, goal. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Julie, I want to wrap up with a few questions. Yet before we do, one, tell us about this Coach Core because I'm a part of it. I love it. Yeah, I would love for you to promote Coach Core and just talk a little bit about it. And then two, where can people find you after this episode if they want to reach out and connect?
Yeah, you bet. I appreciate that, Kelly. Coach Core was really built out of this understanding of, again, Tanya on our team, who I know you talked about, you'll have her on the podcast, and Tanya and I sat down and we were like, hey, who can we serve and how can we serve them? What problems can we solve? And both of us come from coaching background. So a lot of what we do inside our business in the agency is a lot of coaching. We sit in a fractional CMO position for a lot of companies. And so the cool thing is we actually sat down and we said, okay, in your coaching business, what was like the biggest challenge you had? And for both of us, it was the tech. I didn't have a website for our business for the first 3 years we were in business. It was all word of mouth that had built it. And so we were like, what if we could simplify that for coaches? And then with the StoryBrand background, part of it was like, how could we also help them market and understand these key concepts so they can get out and do what they do best? And so we build templates. We have a course that takes them step by step on how to create all these assets that will get them set up in building funnels and generating revenue into their business and building courses. So it's a really robust tool designed for a coach at any stage. So if you're just beginning, you can come in and everything's there that you'll need to grow to whatever size you want to be. And if you're already an established coach, everything is there for wherever you want to go. And so that was our biggest thing. It didn't need to cost thousands. So that was one of the other pieces of the puzzle is we were like, all of these tools don't need to cost coaches thousands of dollars per month. So we have it at the $97 a month rate for our first coaches in the door here. And so we're really excited to get it launched. And again, we talked about imperfect action. We have had a few things that we've learned along the way as we launched this product, and it's making it better every single day and being okay with that. And so I'm really excited to see how many coaches we have come in and we can equip with the tools.
That's awesome. I highly recommend it. I'm a part of Coach Core, and you have made my life so much easier because the areas of stress for me is the technology, websites, like mail subscriptions, scheduling. All of these pieces of the puzzle is put into a very user-friendly system and tool. And what I love is that you guys truly care and you're there and you're available. There's somebody human to talk to. You have your office hours. We can come on and troubleshoot and get questions answered. You give us guidance. So it's not just, you're not just purchasing a tool and good luck. You're purchasing a tool and becoming a part of a community of coaches who are going to lift you up and empower you and be there for you to make sure you're successful. And you don't find that very often anymore. And so I'm just really grateful for you guys having the courage to start this business because it's going to help my business. And so just thank you. And Julie, where can we find you? Like, where can we access this information and just get a hold of you yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So the agency website is WMCco.ca. So WMCco.ca. And then Coach Core is coachcore.ca. So on either of those websites, you can get a hold of our team. We try to answer those connections as fast as possible. And really, you can also reach out to us on social media. Both of the agency and the Coach Core have social media accounts on Instagram and Facebook. And then if you have any questions, you can always email me at julie@wmcco.ca.
Awesome. And I'll put all that info in the show notes so that everybody doesn't have to memorize that. And okay, just a few more questions. So I'm curious now at this time in your life, Julie, after your whole journey you've been through up until now, what would you say is your version of success today?
This is such a beautiful question because my version of success has definitely changed over the last few years. When I started the business, my version of success was, hey, what if I could make an extra $10,000 in the next 3 months? And that was life-changing for our family years ago. And now my version of success is, hey, what if at the end of all this, there's a lot of people we've served who have said, hey, we could do better work because of the tools you gave us and we could serve at a higher quality. So to me, and I just learned this because I did my Y operating system, that what we're doing is helping.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Thank you for sharing. And to piggyback onto this, my podcast, the tagline is Unleashing Greatness Within. And so I'm just curious, what would 3 things be that you would say to the listeners on how to tap into their greatness?
Mm. The first one would be that greatness unfolds when you take action, even if the action is imperfect. And then I would also say to unleash the greatness within, you have to be willing to find what it is that lights you up, not what somebody else is telling you should be doing. And finding what it is that day to day you are designed to do that really can fill your bucket. I really believe our greatness, everybody has greatness within them. And I think that it's all different. That's what's so cool about it, is that the way that I deem success, not necessarily how other people deem success, and that's okay. However, the reason I know that my greatness is being unleashed is because I sat down and figured out what it was for me that felt like. And I think it's also important to understand that other people's opinions only matter if you let them matter. Who is it that you're surrounding yourself with that will actually help you bring that greatness to life? And so your circle is important too.
Yeah, agree with all that. Thanks for sharing. Okay, last question. What would be one call to action you could give the listeners? So when they hop off this episode, that they could go and let's say they're an entrepreneur or a business owner, that when it comes to marketing and your message, that they could go and implement this week.
I would say one piece of it is go do the research, find out what your ideal client is saying. If you're a coach, say for example, you're a health coach, what is one tool that in your toolbox somebody could benefit from immediately? And what problem would it solve? And go create a video sharing that. Say, hey, I just learned this, something really cool, and I wanted to share it with you because most people are struggling with X. And this is a way that you can move through that struggle. And just turn the camera on, go be authentic, and share that tool, and give yourself permission to be imperfect. Because just that one step, a really quick getting it done fast and dirty, doesn't have to be perfect. We've tested it. It does not have to be perfect for it to be powerful. And just show yourself you got this in you. I really love the idea of piece of content out that solves a problem right away, because it takes all of that kind of guesswork and all of the things out. Just get it done.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, Julie, I loved having you be here. You've shared so much. I've taken so much away. I was taking notes even as you were talking for myself. So just really grateful that you're here. We've got to have you back on, because as you've been speaking, I have so many questions around how you scaled your business, even outside of the marketing. Like, how did you go from being at home, not working, to all of a sudden making multiple 6 figures, to then now going into a 7-figure year? So I like down the road, I'd love to have you back on and have you share, because I know the listeners would love to know those tips as well. Right? Pick your brain around that. So just, really inspired by you, grateful to be in your circle. Thank you for creating Coach Core. That's going to end you're living your vision through me. It's impacting my business. And just thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time.
Oh, Rebecca, to Kelly, I love what you're doing. And I'm so grateful that people like you exist in the world, because I love the podcast is amazing. I felt so honored to be asked to be a guest, and I'm so excited for what lies ahead for you. So thanks for letting me be a part of your journey.
Thank you. Let's have an awesome year together.
Yes.
Thanks for listening so much, everybody. I really hope you got value today from my special guest, Julie Wieler. Man, I know I sure did. I took away so much from our brief conversation around marketing and how to implement some best practices around marketing and how to show up as my authentic self and attract my ideal client and customer or avatar, and the kind of messaging that's important to align with, and just so many little nuggets. And so I encourage you to reach out with Julie if you have more questions, or you are curious about what might be the best strategy for you and your business. Reach out to her. She's phenomenal. She's an expert at what she's done. She helps so many people. And then with Coach Core, I really am a big advocate for this tool that they have for coaches and other business entrepreneurs. It really is a business in a box in the sense of all the technology and tools that you need to get your business up and running and be running smoothly and successful. And it alleviates a lot of that stress so that you can just show up and do what you're meant to do, which is be in your business, be the face of your business, work and attract and talk to your clients and your customers. You don't have to worry about all that back end mumbo jumbo. So definitely reach out to them for that as well. And just thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, download, head over to my YouTube channel as I asked previously and subscribe. I would so appreciate that. And thanks for being here and showing up every single week. Appreciate you so much. With love, greatness, and success, it's your host, Kelly Beveridge.